It's the first show of January here on Morning Kickaround, so the hottest topic on everyone's lips in soccer, it is the transfer window. MLS teams building their rosters for the 2025 season, while the European teams look to add players or ship off players in the January transfer market. Let's go today with American adjacent transfer news. He's not American himself, but Marcus Rashford, the kind of odd man out at the struggling Manchester United squad. Rumors swirling that there's talks about getting him onto the Seattle Sounders.
Okay, let's be clear that I think what we have with that Sounders rumor is something completely unsourced, something completely anonymous, something
Cranking up the rumor
completely.
machine.
Yeah, is it possible that someone at the Sounders asked the question, what if we went after Marcus Rashford? That is absolutely possible.
That's
It's
the
possible
report.
that's, when you're in one of those brainstorming sessions, Rob, and no idea is a bad idea, and you're just throwing stuff out, and you're like, no judgment, whatever you got, guys. It's like, oh, let's put a dog on a hot dog cart and run it around town, and we'll make a ton of money. No, I mean, probably not going to happen. You're probably not going to do that. I don't know why the dog and the hot dog cart came to mind for me, but this is the same kind of thing, right? That maybe there's an idea. Maybe somebody was like, well, Marcus Rashford's available. Let's kick the tires on the idea. And then somebody told somebody else, and that became a telephone game. And, oh, the Seattle Sounders are interested in Marcus Rashford.
Boom.
If the Seattle Sounders were, attractive in some manner, and I do think it's possible they could be, but attractive in some manner to Marcus Rashford, and B, had the resources to bring Marcus Rashford in, okay, maybe it's possible. But I just think if we're talking about reality here, if this is going to be a loan, right, because maybe United, I'm sure United would prefer to get him off the books completely. Sell Marcus Rashford. And what's his value right now, Rob? Do you have any sense of what that is? I don't mean like look it up on Transfer Market. I mean, what the hell is Marcus Rashford worth? Does anybody actually know? Because there's so many different things about him that would change his value as opposed to an equivalent talent in world football. Is Marcus Rashford a good player, Rob?
Yes, he's a good player.
Yes.
He's had moments where he's been great, but it's been like he goes like every couple seasons of hot and cold. So
Sure,
that
but
would
he's a
lead me
good
to
player.
believe that with all the coaches that have been in and out, he has to be played in the right way to be a above average player.
Okay, but we've seen players who have struggled at times in some places still go for fairly significant fees or go for something that still represents a giant reach by MLS standards or well beyond MLS standards, right? Do we imagine that the Seattle Sounders have $25 million to buy Marcus Rashford? No, they do not. I will just give you a spoiler. They don't have that much. And I don't even know that would be enough to buy Marcus Rashford. So let's put buying off the table. Right? Buying's not happening for the Sounders. Now, would there be a chance of a loan? Perhaps. But here's the problem with the loan. Who's paying the wages, Rob? Is United so happy to get rid of Marcus Rashford that they just boot him out of town, send him off to Seattle and carry his wages? Because those are significant. He makes a lot of money. His contract runs to like 2030 or something like that. He's on a bunch of cash. The Sounders aren't going to pay that. And again, this salary budgets and MLS rules are part of this that I'm not even really accounting for exactly. But it just, again, I would love for it to happen. I actually think that Marcus Rashford could benefit from being outside the English spotlight in a place like America. He could be a very Ricky Puig-like figure in that regard. But I don't think that's happening. I just don't think that'd be nice. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, he's famous and very like a household name to a certain degree, but he doesn't have the Messi give him like a percentage of the Apple subscriptions sort of a famous to kind of move mountains like that you wouldn't expect. Apparently, reportedly, Marcus Rashford has turned down some Saudi approaches, and as of like 10 minutes ago, Gold.com is reporting that Amorim has ruled Rashford out of the Liverpool Manchester United game on Sunday and won't be back until at least the FA Cup third round
Oh,
weekend after
okay.
this.
Ruled out because of what?
Illness? Illness,
Hurt
it says.
feelings? And owie? His soul is okay. Because Emery is going back and forth on Rashford. And I don't think Emery's got his sea legs underneath him at all in Manchester. I don't think he's got
There's a lot of like comparing progress compared to Ten Hag, and that's a dangerous game. That's a dangerous game. If you're underperforming a guy that just got fired, then that's a dangerous spot.
I mean, when he can legitimately be asked about whether or not Manchester United has to be worried about a relegation battle, I think things are pretty bad for Manchester United. And I feel bad for Emery because, again, this is one of those situations where United calls and says, hey, we'd like you to manage our football club, a world-famous football club that has won many a Premier League title, that, you know, has this deep history and a connection to the global game, perhaps unparalleled by anybody outside of Real Madrid. Is he supposed to go, you know, I'm kind of good here at Porto. Like, this is, I'm comfortable. Like, you know, I go down and get my coffee. I can speak my native language. You know, I know the people. I got the best goal scorer in the world right now in Victor Gyökeres. I'm good. And they're like, well, actually, we kind of like to have Victor Gyökeres too. So maybe you come over and then Victor comes over. We'll put the band together. It's going to be great. He's not going to say no to that. When your dream job, I'm not sure it exactly is, but when a dream job comes calling, Rob, how do you say no? And yet here it is again, United doing the thing where they've hit reset. They've handed the keys to the car to a manager who has proven himself in a second-tier European league, right? They're still a mess organizationally. They still have so much confusion over who's running the Dean. The Dean, is it Ashworth? Dean Ash guy. He left after 5 months because apparently nobody was happy with the way things were being handled with the choice to keep Ten Hag. I mean, again, there's just no clear who's responsible, how is this happening, what's the plan. The plan seems to be find some sort of phenom-like manager and give him a chance. That's the plan. And there's the institutional support is bad. And of course, for Emery, it is more complicated because he plays a certain way. And they were like, hey, play your way. And he looks around and goes, well, none of these guys can play my way. I'll play your way anyway.
These aren't the Legos that I need to build my Portuguese system here.
Yeah, he's like, you gave me Duplo and I need Legos. What's happening here? And then they say, well, why don't you change? He's like, because that's who I am.
And that's why I was hired, was to do my thing, right?
I don't know if he's sticking to his guns because he's principled that way, which sounds insane, or because the club has told him, stick to your guns. This is who we wanted you to be. But how is it tenable for him? And now they throw the Rashford situation into the mix, and you know who's leaving, who's going. It's just disastrous right now for Manchester United. It's like watching Notre Dame go 1-15 or 1-12 or how many football games they play in college now. It's and obviously Notre Dame's not that because they're in a national championship semifinal. So it's wild.
But at the same time, I mean, we say Manchester United's a dumpster fire, this and that, but they, you know, over the last few years, they've won some of the minor competitions, like the domestic.
They have won some trophies.
They've had their days, but not the overarching, like, large-scale league success that they'd obviously want.
And I think I do think it's somewhat okay. Like, it's always going to be a difficult process to adjust your expectations if you've been a Manchester United fan during the Alex Ferguson era, right? During the class of 92 and during all the success and the treble in 99. Like, if you live through all of that, to get to this point, you know, where you're just a League Cup winning team or an FA Cup winning team is like, oh, that sucks. That's who we are now. We're just that. Meanwhile, I'm a Fulham fan, and you give me any trophy, and we're going absolutely bonkers, right? If we make the Conference League, I know we were in the Europa League, we made a final in that, but if we made the Conference League this year, I would go, oh, what a great season. Marco Silva for Manager of the Year. Like, I would say those things. It's all about expectations and level. So I think it's okay. It's going to be a tough process. It's okay for clubs to have a readjustment and have to figure it out. But what the problem here for United, it's not just like, oh, we're just now a cup team. It's we're not even that. And we are, 4 4 points, 5 points off of being in real trouble in terms of relegation. And I don't know what happens. I mean, the closest comparison we maybe have is Juve after they were sent down because of the scandals in Italy. But that was not because they were bad necessarily. It's because they were being punished. We had Rangers have to shut down and restart and come up through the Scottish system, which, the way the Scottish system works, Rangers was just going to be back in a couple years anyway as a new entity. That was sad, but that was, again, financially related. To have Manchester United potentially relegated is like, what drug did I take? What year is it?
I feel like that's just setting expectations way down. Like, hey guys, it might get worse before it gets better. Because I mean, relegation, honestly, if they won like 4 out of their last 6 games of the season, they'd get themselves out of any trouble that they might be in.
But are they capable of doing that based on what you've seen? Anyway, okay. Were we talking transfers? Was this supposed to be about transfers? Did I just railroad us?
Yeah, we railroaded a little bit, but in further railroading, you were talking about Fulham. We didn't hear much out of you about Fulham's once in like 2 generations win against Chelsea on Boxing Day.
I mean, incredible. I mean, you kind of saw what the life of a Fulham fan is like with the next one, which was the draw against Bournemouth. Is that right? Do I have that right?
You tell me, Cottager.
Yeah, it was great to beat Chelsea. I do, let's turn this back to the conversation we were supposed to be having, and we'll make it about Jedi Robinson for a minute.
Yeah.
Obviously, he is an excellent left back. He is 26 years old, so he's past that point where you're paying a premium because of his age, but he's obviously very good. There's been some Liverpool chatter. They obviously are dealing with the possibility of Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving from the other side, but I think more than likely Robinson's not going anywhere in January. I don't think that's happening. I don't think they're going to get the fee they want. I don't think anybody's panic buying a left back.
There's not too much internal moves in January either. Most January moves are from overseas typically.
It tends to happen that way, right? There could be something in terms of overseas moves. And what we're seeing a lot of right now, if we're kind of doing a rumor mill, is potential loans. The idea of Xerxes going to Juve is something I saw today because Xerxes not having a good time. Nobody's having a good time in Manchester, at Manchester United, to be fair. But, is that something, I guess, maybe Otamendi, if City really needs their Rodri replacement right now, could they do that? Of course, they've got the 130 charges hanging over them. And, are they able to even spend anything? I actually don't know that. We talked about Ricardo Pepi. I'm seeing the stories about, multiple teams interested in Ricardo Pepi. We're doing that dance again. What would be the best place for Ricardo Pepi to land? I don't think he's going anywhere.
It still seems like being in the best team in, like that 1B sort of tier league in Europe. Definitely, like, that doesn't really seem like a better place as long as he can get that spot ahead of De Jong and like be playing for that best team. But that's a great place to be in. They're free scoring. Yeah. I don't think there should be any hurry for him to take off. He needs to establish himself somewhere first.
Well, I mean, I do think he's capable of starting and scoring, 15 to 20 goals a year. And depending on what league we're talking about, I mean, he's not going to end up going to, like Wolves and scoring goals by the bucket load. I don't think that would happen. I think he could be passable in certain top 5 leagues as a starter, right? He's definitely improved from the Augsburg experience. And I think he deserves that shot. It just seems like nothing. It doesn't seem like the market has evolved for him yet. And there may be other dominoes. Jonathan David is still out there. What's his big move from Lille? I mentioned Victor Gyökeres. He's the highest scoring forward in the world in the last calendar year. Somebody's going to go in for him. And then once those dominoes start to fall and some of those other players move from one place to another, then I think it's possible Ricardo Pepi could be in that mix. Just saying that. Just as a possibility. Also worth mentioning here, Esmir Baraktarovic from the New England Revolution, talented young player, attacking player, is going to PSV Eindhoven to join the American contingent. Ernie Stewart doing that business again. I think it's $6 million the Revs are getting for Baraktarovic with a sell-on clause. It's good business
for them. First ever foreign sale for the Revs.
Is that right? No.
Yeah, that's the headline I saw, I thought.
Didn't they sold Georgie, the goalkeeper? What's his name? They sold him to Chelsea. What are we talking about here?
Let me double check.
Dempsey went to Fulham. Clint Dempsey went to Fulham.
Maybe it was Maybe it was a homegrown. My apologies.
It probably was that. I think you're right. I think it's a first ever homegrown sale. Maybe. Who's the midfielder? The English American midfielder. He's not sold yet. They still got him. Anyway, that's probably what's going on. The homegrown situation. But worth mentioning that Bariktarovic has already decided he's playing for Bosnia and Herzegovina and not for the United States men's national team. That's already filed and switched, so he can't play for the U.S. But still good to see an American academy, an MLS academy, developing a player who gets a move to a place like PSV Eindhoven. And I think he's good enough that it's going to be 2 or 3 years before he's flipped. PSV Eindhoven makes double their money on him. Obviously, the Revs will get a cut of that. But I think this is a player who's going to keep growing and find a higher level sooner rather than later.
Yeah, my apologies. The 19-year-old Bekterovic, first ever homegrown sold by the Revs. So good, fact checked there. Other American moves that have happened: James Sands to St. Pauli, and then it looks like Brandon Vasquez is going to Austin.
The Brandon Vasquez thing, I think that's developing, right?
Yeah.
We already mentioned Jesus Ferreira going Dallas to Seattle. Paul Arriola's name came up as a potential move to Seattle as well. That has seemed to have dropped off a little bit. I don't know what's going on there. Brandon Vasquez, there was all these rumors that his contract was being canceled, that Monterrey literally didn't want him and was booting him out the door, and we don't even care if we get anything back for you. That doesn't seem to be the case. 14 goals he scored in Monterrey. I think he is a limited player, but I think he has utility in certain situations, and maybe a return to MLS in Austin would be a good move for him. I don't know that Cincinnati fans, I guess they would probably feel pretty good about this, right? Because of the money that they got from Monterrey for Brandon Vasquez. And now here he is, not bombing out, but certainly not going from strength to strength in terms of his career arc. And Cincinnati fans can think, wait, we cashed out at the right time on Brandon Vasquez.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. And thank you, Nate, also always throwing in the comments each and every episode just about. Be sure to click subscribe if you haven't already. Morning Kick Around on the YouTube channel. Morning Kick Around, 2 words, Morning Kick Around. If you break it into 3 words, you're going to get directed towards like some sort of a Chuck Norris Bowflex sort of a system. So don't do that. Morning Kick Around. And then on social media at @mkickaround, or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com.
Isn't the internet done with Chuck Norris? We haven't had enough Chuck Norris in the history of the internet. We can move on.
But he's still selling things. He's still selling fitness regimens. So
that man is he is marketed to the nth degree. He is marketed to the hilt, that guy.
And how much good did Conan O'Brien do for his career when he brought those Walker Texas Ranger clips? Brought a whole new life to Walker there on Conan.